Only 3 minutes late. Let me put this on mute. You get caught up listening to something and you're just like, you can't stop. Well, I was working on things and listening to things, and you get deeply interested. So it takes me a couple extra minutes to get started going, oh, yeah. And then I'm like, yeah, let's do this. But we're going to talk about the Acemagic first, get that out of the way, because I know that's probably why some people post this live stream being live, have clicked on the link. So I'm going to be talking about that first, and I'll go into a few other topics. And we'll read a couple of the comments. Some of the many PCs from AcePC have been criticized for having suspicious software load, like a version of Chrome that doesn't respond to setting changes. I don't know if that's true or not. That's a little bit confusing, because I believe that the settings will change. Chrome will pick up its old settings if you reinstall it. You just got to go through and clear it. But I wouldn't trust any of them. We'll just start that at the beginning, to just use them out of the box with whatever random software shipped on them. I don't really do that. That's definitely one of the concerns I would have. I have AcePC PicoBox Mini PC Proxmox cluster. After the first one started in Windows, I switched to the SATA drives to blank the ones. Yeah, I mean, if you're just wiping them, and that's the first thing I do anyways, I don't spend a lot of time. It just comes with really any of these PCs outside. Well, even OEMs, when you buy them from the large companies, we generally rewrite them right away. I don't trust whatever garbage they may or may not have put on them. And so we don't, I just don't bother with that. All right, here we go. I'm going to go share the screen about the Acemagic. So let's get that started right now. Share screen. Because I've actually been using this one for a little while. And let me give you a little background here. So Acemagic reached out to me and says, let's send you a mini PC. We said, okay. And I reviewed one. They've now sent me a couple of them. They sent me the one I did the review on, like a dedicated video, another model. Then this one was sent to me as well. I said yes a few times because why not? But there's nothing that I find really significant about them. I'm also not the most expert person at doing hardware reviews. Sometimes I feel these mini PCs are all kind of the same, especially because with Acemagic, they have more than one name. And I brought this up before. It makes it really hard to figure out, because they also go by the name. We'll share the other tab here. Camrui. They are the same ones without different. It's Camrui, or is it Acemagic? The specs are the same. The boxes are the same. The logo's different. The website's not great. I hate things that constantly want to chat with me, but hey, that's apparently how their website works. But let's go back to the actual Acemagic one. The weird thing is they brought it up again to me, like, hey, you haven't really reviewed this one that we sent you. And, I brought it up in a couple live streams before that I was using it. This one I'm going to call my finalized review of it, because I've been actually using it for quite a while, running XCP-NG. It works great, actually. Functionally wise, I've had no problems at all with it. This is the system when it's currently running. Let me pull it up. It's this running XCP-NG. This is the host that it's been running. It's got 32 gigs of RAM, 16 cores. We'll get a little bit more detailed in the specs here, but it's been running for a few months. I just restarted it because I wanted to take a few photos of it. But let's run down the specs list and kind of cover it. It's a Ryzen 7 7735H. This is one of the reasons that I wanted to review it. Was I like some of the Ryzen mini PCs because they're very low power. It has the built-in and integrated AMD Radeon, 32 gigs of RAM, 512 gig SSD. I actually think this one, let's go look at the storage on it real quick here. I actually believe this one, okay, yeah, it only has 512, and I couldn't remember. One of them had it said 512, but actually shipped with something bigger in it, which I was like, hey, cool. That's nice that they sent me a bigger one. This one did ship with a 512, which is fine. Little NVMe in it. Solid state. Go down here. This is one of the weird features. I don't know why it has this, but it does. They equipped it with wireless charging, so I can set my phone on top of this and charge it. That's weird, but we'll go with that. Dual 2.5 gig internet, dual HDMI out. So yeah, we got a couple USBs, USB-C power. And that I was so confused when I seen this, because I'm like, why has it got this little symbol on it? Let's share this tab instead. Sorry, it's wrong tab. But I was like, why does it have this little symbol on it? What does that symbol mean? And it turns out that's wireless charging. I was like, oh, I can set, and you can set a device on it. It's got Qi charging built in. Novel. I don't know the real reason for that, but it has it. I think of it more of just a convenient mini PC. I guess it could be a small workstation. I don't know. It's not bad though. It runs XCP-NG perfectly fine, and the 2.5 gigs work great on it. So that part's solid there. I like that they show the Qi charging on it right now. But one of the problems is, and it says it right here, coming soon for this model. I've had it for a while. It says coming soon, but it also says sold out. They were for sale for a while, then they're gone. I can't even find them on Amazon, so I can't even offer you an Amazon link for it, which is also weird for them to be bugging me about a review when it's essentially not easy to obtain this particular model. The other things about it, though, is I will say it is quite fast. It is quite low power. So those things are, those match up in terms of that. Actually, I forgot to get the power specs. I guess I could really quickly go plug in the device, but it's, do they have the wattage on it? I'll pull the wattage of what you get actually at the plug. So I can go do that real quick. I just got to run over to the other side and plug the kilowatt into it to give you an idea. But, it's not a bad little box. The complaint I'm going to have about it, let's go over some pictures before I plug in for the kilowatt on it to show you the actual wattage. So I forgot to pull that up. But in case you're wondering, from the photos here, if you're wondering, did Tom shoot this on his pool table? He sure did. This was absolutely, photos were taken on my pool table because it was convenient. We'll take a look inside of it real quick there. It does have a nice little, the heat transfer pad on the SSD. You got the Wi-Fi inside, but if you notice, you have spots here so you can plug in a couple more. And I think these actually are these NVMe. Does it see if that's in the specs there? What speed are they? Okay, yeah, they're all three per their site. They're all three NVMe's. I want to make sure they were full NVMe speed. But the boxes worked really well running Linux. I've stress tested it. I've run, all my little tools I've been running on it, and it's actually worked quite well. I haven't had any issues with it. One thing I'll say is the black gloss, I guess you call it. I've heard it referred to that a lot. It's really glossy black. Everything shines on it. And if you notice from even the first photo, there's a fingerprint, and here's from a different light angle. Look how that fingerprint on there. I had to wipe this off so many times just to make it look like this. It is a fingerprint magnet for sure, but they're not bad little boxes. I mean, that's my thoughts on them. Now, I think these are still reasonable deals for a lot of Homelab, and I think they're probably, for the power you get out of them in terms of how little wattage they use, which we'll get to the exact wattage in a moment, versus how much they cost versus how small and quiet they are. I think these are going to start offsetting some of these larger servers as being popular in the Homelab. I know they don't have the features you're going to get or the storage you're going to get with like an old Dell R630 or something like that. But on the other side, you're not dealing with something that's large, heavy, pulling lots of wattage, pulling lots of heat, and bulky. These, you can build a small cluster of them for pretty reasonable. Now, I'm going to cover the one big downside I feel about all of these mini PCs that aren't passively cooled, and that is going to come down to the fans. When I reviewed the other one, let me pull that video up real quick. But one of the other ones I reviewed, I harped a lot on that fan because I just don't feel that the fan, and that was the Go-Win model here. When I reviewed the Go-Win, yeah, that's this little box here. I've got a whole review I did, and the mini fans on there are adequate to keep up with it almost. When you're using a 25 gig, I was able to overheat the 25 gig on this one. This other device only has 2.5 gig. And obviously, if you just use a 2.5 gig, this thing never overheats. But my problem is what happens in 3 or 4 years if you get a little dust in these fans? How serviceable are they? Because it would be a nightmare to take any of these, including the Acemagic one, apart, because it just doesn't come apart easy. That's the one big downside I see to these. They didn't really think about serviceability. I think most of their goal is like, how cheap can we make this box and send it out to people? And, they have a few other of their Ryzen mini PCs on their site, but they're all designed the same way. They're not easily serviceable. They maybe want you to make it easy to pop a drive into them, but that's about it. Outside of the drive, you're like, yeah, if the fan goes bad, it's a kind of weird little custom fan that you might have to get for it. Let me go through and answer some questions that people may have about it. Realtek NICs. The NICs in this, I believe, are Intel 2.5 gigs. Let me double check that. That's a good point. Let me SSH into it and we'll get some of the hardware specs pulled up. But I'm 99% sure the NICs in this device are, I think they're Intel based. Let's figure that out. I thought that was in their notes, but it's not. One of the other ones I reviewed had the Intel NICs in there, and I was like, ew. That was one of my problems with it. I can't remember. It's another, if you look, it's the only other Acemagic I reviewed. I don't plan to keep doing too much. They want to send me a lot of these. As you get bigger as a YouTuber, they just like, hey, let's start sending you all these. And you say yes to a few, but then you realize you don't want to say yes to all of them. At some point, I'm like, I don't really need all of these things. Not my expertise, or actually not my desire. Oh, womp womp. They are Realtek network controllers. Oh, wait, no, I'm wrong. Ethernet controller device i25. So they have Intel Ethernets in there. Well, let's go ahead and I got to share out my tab here. So this is actually interesting. The two onboard NICs, Realtek is for the Wi-Fi, but we have the onboard NICs are Intel. So we have 2.5 gig Intels on there. So that's definitely a big plus, in my opinion. Yeah, 3 NVMe in a mini PC is not bad. 3 M2s, I agree completely. And, me and Wendell have both talked about this, and Wendell from Level 1 Techs, building little clusters out of these mini PCs, they're low wattage. You're making up for the potential pitfalls of these things maybe not being long-term reliable by building them into some type of redundancy and running things on there. And I think that's not a bad idea. And then you can put some redundancy on your storage by having, you could set this up in a pair with 2 NVMEs, or put 3 of them in there, and maybe even, set up a RAID between them. It's not going to have any hardware RAID, but you can set software RAID up, have some redundancies of your data on there, have one boot drive and a pair of other drives that you set up in a RAID mirror. I think it's a pretty neat little device. Build 3 nodes, 2 CPUs. Those Amazon CPUs, each host has 72 cores, 5 12 gigs RAM. Yeah, you could do quite a bit on your Homelab stuff. The only thing is a lack of after-sales support by Acemagic. People says anything about hardware. Oh yeah, I don't know how good the after-sales support's going to be at all. I almost would go in with the assumption of no. I don't. Outside, if you buy these through Amazon, I feel you have better protections. And they've sent me links before, and I didn't post them. They wanted me to use their link to send it to their site. I personally, I'd buy these from Amazon before I buy these from their site. That's my opinion. And that's one of these things about these reviews. They can send me the box. I'm going to review it in the way I want to review it. I mean, I have to disclose because I'm very honest about all my reviews that, someone sends me something, but this is actually why I prefer to buy things myself. So I don't even have to disclose that. I can just say whatever I want, whether I like it or not like it. I can completely just say, this is my opinion. There's no implied bias. I mean, I do like when a company sends me stuff that can be nice. It's convenient. I'm not going to buy it because I'm not likely. This is not a device I'd likely to buy myself. I have a lot of servers. That's part of my problem. And I end up, sometimes when I'm done with these, giving them away to employees and things like that, or they just end up in a lab somewhere else. I started deploying mini forums at my work for generic PCs. Registered salesmen paint. They're cheap, plenty powerful for what we do. Haven't had one fail yet in 2 years. I brought this up before because Kotam has these boxes here. I've just had this one on my desk as an example one for a little while. This is the actual Kotam one. The only failures we've seen is some of the NICs just die. That's happened to a few of them. The other things we've seen is they use the cheapest possible NVMEs. So if you have something that ends up with a heavy amount of read write, sometimes they have gone bad, but not often, but more than expected. But you can pop in a normal NVMe and solve that as well. So that's kind of, yeah. I have a couple to tell you that I use for XCP-NG boxes. The box you're showing looks nicer though. Oh yeah, these definitely run really nice for that. 3M2s, 6-8 core. Perfect little unraid box, no boot disk required. Yeah. Mostly sketchy stuff on Amazon, as well as mostly break first week or never. Yeah. It's like they work. The ones we've gotten outside of drive failures, I don't think, well, no, I take that back. I think we have one at the, they have one at the CNWR office that just mystery died, not long. I think it lasted just a month or two and just mystery died. Maybe it was a little bit longer. I don't remember. It was just long enough that they couldn't send it back. That's why it's sitting on a shelf. But it's, I don't know. It's what you're saving for the number that we bought. It's not that many, but it's still higher than if we're looking at like Lenovo boxes and things like that. I see a lot of mini PCs in doctor's office attached with VESA mount to the monitor. Now, that's another thing. One of the little things I like is it Lenovo that makes them? Some of the Lenovo mini PCs, and Dell makes some too. Those are actually pretty nice, and you can get those on the secondary market pretty reasonably priced. We actually got a hell of a deal. And oddly, they were new. They were on clearance when we were buying some. Their sale was like half off. We bought them completely for a client project. We bought a bunch of the HP really tiny mini ones, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. I can buy some of these for the clients, and the price was killer. They were better than the Dells at the time, and I haven't had any problems at all. The clients we deployed those to, and I mean, I can't remember the model number on them. Let me look them up on Amazon because we've ordered a bunch before. They are the Lenovo ThinkCentres. Stop sharing so I can switch. Yeah, these little mini PCs, and they're solid. You can find, and these are new prices for them. You can find used ones for pretty cheap. These little boxes are quite reliable, though. And now you don't have to worry about, you actually will get warranty and support on these models. These, I think my friends over at Hardware Haven have covered and done some reviews on these on that YouTube channel. Yeah, these are another option for some of the mini PCs. Does it make sense to skip 2.5 gig and go to 10 gig sec instead? Yes, but, and my problem, and the reason I say but, I definitely think yes. The challenge you run into is when it comes to these mini PCs, it's finding ones that have the 10 gig on them. I agree. 2.5 gig is a weird middle standard. Like, just give me all the way to 10. But finding little PCs with 10s on them has become kind of more challenging. They always seem to stick the 2.5 gigs in there. Let's see. On all my customers, I have supplied them HP or Dell under the desk mount or on the back of the mount, deploying smart deploy, clean, easy setup. Oh yeah, those are really, really solid. Yeah, finding a 10 gig ones is a little challenging. Now, the other side of it, though, the other argument I could make is 1 gig works for the majority of things. If you look at what I'm running on there, like right now, I don't have much. I have hold on, let me switch to that particular pool. Oh, sure, I got Chasm on here, for example. Chasm can be connected at 1 gig. It's going to work perfectly fine. It's not like I need to have this connected at 10 gig for the services I'm running. I have, some random things I run in Docker, all the little connections. As a matter of fact, if you look at my Synology and I look at all the different things I have running in here, like my fresh RSS and everything else, all of that's connected at 1 gig. Even my media server is only connected at 1 gig. I don't need 10 gig to my media server. 10 gig is great if you need like 100 TVs streaming 4K stuff. But the reality is I usually never have more than 1 or 2 TVs streaming, and you can have more than that on a 1 gig link. So 1 gig even works perfectly fine. The only thing I need 10 gig for, the only thing in my network is first, my video editing. 10 gig is a necessity, or video editing would be painful because I'm shooting everything in 4K. So the video files are huge. So I do need that. I need 10 gig for my hypervisor connected to the storage, so all the different machines boot fast enough. But even that's kind of limited because it kind of depends on the virtual machines that you have on there. Yeah, Hardware Haven sent some really good videos on that whole topic. What about 10G? We need 10G networking. How you doing, Bearded IT Dad? Yeah, NFS for VM disks, that you probably want 10 gig for. Why not 40 gig? We have some 100 gig stuff in the office I'm going to talk about in a minute here. How many customers insist on 10G, 40G, or whatever? I mean, look at the metrics we use at 1.1 gig during peak hours. Yeah, we had a customer that really, well, I mean, they're getting it because they have the budget for it. We're putting in 100 gig infrastructure for them. They just wanted to future-proof it, and they have the budget for it, so we're putting it in. The reality, one of the things we told them is you're not going to saturate your 100 gig because they're getting some of the 45 drives XL60s from us, and well, they have a few already. They're buying more, and yeah, having a 45 drives XL60, which is here, 60 drives in the system, still ain't going to saturate at 10 gigs. Sorry. Yep. So I'm going to go plug that into the kilowatt real quick so I can answer the question and be done with the Ace Ryzen part of this. Oh, by the way, I will have all this time indexed. I'm using some tools to re-time index all the live streams after I'm done with them. But let me go plug it into the kilowatt so I can get the actual usage of that on here. So go ahead and I'm going to put the little countdown spinner thing on it. So I'll be right back. All right, we have our numbers. I just got to refresh this phone real quick. Catch up on the comments. Oh, let's see here. I have 10 gig at home. Wonderful. It's backbone. My servers doesn't matter. Yeah, so let's hold on here. Let's get this. How many watts do you think it uses? We'll play this as a guessing game. So I'll throw the numbers up here. So the peak wattage when it was booting up the VMs and everything else hit 52 watts. That was the peak wattage. Then it idled. It would bounce around a little bit, went down to 12, then idled all the way down to 12.2 watts. So 12 watts at idle at the plug via a kilowatt device, and 52 watts was the max it pulled on there. So not bad. This is one of the reasons I've been using it is because it's such a low wattage and really you can't hear that device. It is silent. I guess I've made it make a little bit of noise when the fan whirs up, but it's minor. It's not as loud as some of the gaming laptops are definitely I've heard have louder fans than this device. So yeah. Yeah, the mini PC. Fun stuff. Now, the other things I was working on. This is me over at the CNWR lab. This is the lab in Toledo. I was there. My son was there too, practicing his YouTube face. Because he see me taking a picture. But we have a few things going on there. So let me show you a picture of the server. This is the video I'm working on next. Is the where is it at here? I thought I had a few other pictures of it. I have video. I just didn't have much on my camera. It's this bad boy right here. This is the one that is going to be. I'm going to do a video on this one. This server is about $100,000, roughly $100,000. This is another one for a client we have, and oh yeah, I did. It's the R286. DM me later, and we'll talk about that so we can get your pfSense going. If you didn't know, me and the Bearded IT Dad know each other, so we're all part of the not so secret creators group of other YouTube creators that are in the tech world. So DM me so we can chat about that, so we can get your project going, because I did review it and now it's kind of chilling out. So maybe we should collab and we'll figure this out. We'll get the pfSense stuff done. Let's see. Hey, Tom, I have heard that some hypervisors don't really support the new Intel PE Core hybrid processor architecture. I don't know enough. I can't answer that right now. That would be a good question to post in the forums or even in the XCP-NG forums of how they're handling those particular cores. Ben's so crazy, can't keep up. We should catch up sometime. We just, you know how to DM me, and we'll just, if you can join us tomorrow, we're going to do the, we're doing our meeting tomorrow there. So anyways, you know what I mean? I don't want to get too off topic on that. Morning from the land down under. But let me see if I can pull up. I have a few other pictures of this particular server. I want to show you people what's in it. This is the other side of what we do. Let me limit all these. Here we go. Make sure I can show all these photos. Yes. All these photos are safe to be shown. Yeah, this is what's inside that server. These are all the NVIDIA cards inside of it. This is a pretty wild. These are all RTX A6000s. And I think that's the right model. I'll have the right model number when I get the final review done. But yeah, this is definitely a wild server for running things like Hashcat and stuff like that. It's definitely pretty cool playing with this. We were trying to figure out the best demo to run, so we started running some Hashcat demo, because why not? What are you gonna do with all these GPOs besides crack passwords? Let me look how many passwords. How many passwords in the so 14 million passwords. There we go. We were using the common password list called RockU, and running this password list, which this data set, RockU contains 14 million unique passwords used in 32 million accounts. I think this takes less than a minute to run through all the hashes. And it is wild how fast that can go. It is, yeah, it is crazy how we did. This is what our demo was, running several different things in Hashcat with all the GPUs. I also think it pulls around 3,000 watts when all the GPUs spin up. We don't have any. We would measure the wattage for you, but one of the challenges is, first, it started blowing fuses. That's how we know how much it pulls. So it has 4 power supplies. So we had to split where each 2 power supplies pull from one side of the lab, one from the other side of the lab, so it wouldn't blow fuses. And we had to make sure everything else was turned off. Yeah, that's it is pretty wild how fast it was for doing that. So this is going to be for a pretty specific job for the client. But I mean, this is probably a $300,000 project for the client, between the 100 gig networking, the XL60 servers. They have more than one, 45 drives, XL60 petabyte of data server. As a matter of fact, we can log into that. That I have access to. I'll log into the other one too, but just not right now. Actually, where is it? I gotta get the password to it. Oh, the joy of 110 volt in the USA. A lot of the server stuff ends up being 240, but you're right. The stuff, our lab does not have a 240 in it. Oh, it's probably worth mentioning. I think if we jump through these pictures, there's what the back of the unit looks like. Yeah, it's a beast of a system. It will take few minutes to boot up. I do like that it says that. We did have to take it apart because we had problems with it. That's going to be part of the video. Oh, these are building pictures. People pictures. There's the server pictures. I did another video where I talked about the building tour, but we did have to take it apart to get to the insides of it. I do have some video of this because we had to get to the stupid battery. If you can see, I know it's a little blurry, but you can see the battery in there. Yeah. Fun stuff though, working on these things. This is I don't know how much it's kind of weird doing mini PC reviews, also talking about $100,000 servers and things like that. But, we cover quite a few things. We use some of them for some of our lab and projects, but we also, build these out for our clients, pretty expensive things. I try to figure out what does or doesn't fit on going on the channel. The storage stuff for sure, though, fits going on the channel. I talk about that quite a bit. So let's get I need the password. So sudo open. All right, so now we can log into the other device. this is my next, I got to get this done because that's what I got to work on. This is my project for tomorrow. This has, I got 450 gigs for caching on it. You know, that's a good size ZFS cache, right? 450 gigs. Storage wise, we have, you get the screen readable. There we go. 700 usable capacity with 6 RAID Z3s. And that still puts us at only 3 point. I got what? Yeah, 24 terabytes of data that I set up on this. Yeah, this server is pretty beefy. What I want to do is rebuild it as D-RAID. So I want to pop this out. I did all the load testing while it's in RAID Z3, and I want to swap this over. If I got time, I'm going to get this done tomorrow to a D-RAID setup and see how fast it resilvers. I want to do a resilver with RAID Z3 and a resilver using D-RAID, so I can try to figure out what's a more effective way to do this. There's trade-offs. It's not like D-RAID is the answer. People think because D-RAID is available, it becomes the answer to their problems. And I'm like, it's not that simple. It's not like D-RAID automatically solves other issues that you'll run into, because D-RAID has a lot of trouble with the smaller writes. But then you can put a metadata drive in there to help with that. So there's always trade-offs. There's no, easy answer for it. Yeah, this certainly has that big disk energy here. 726 terabytes. What you can do in a Homelab mini PCs, you can do in a business enterprise, just scaled up. So all the topics are good. Most people see fancy enterprise equipment too often. Yeah, I try to make things more relatable, because I think a lot of channels get caught up into, ooh, the expensive fancy stuff. And I don't really like doing too many videos that are like these unobtainable. I like to show people what things are, how they work, how I look at things, but I don't like to just show, hey, look, I got expensive thing. That to me is not as good for, I don't know. I guess it gets the views. It's the same reason like people driving around in super rare exotic cars that cost $1 million, $2 million gets the views. People like watching it, but I don't think that's as educational. And most of my focus is education. You do know you have 240 at the panel, right? Electric, etc. runs on 240. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Budget for one dual CPU server, which is best? Hypervisor with TrueNAS, or virtual or TrueNAS, or bare metal machines on it. My real preference is going to be to have TrueNAS running on bare metal. That is just always my preference. I don't like one of my other friends. I made friends recently with the guy who runs Jim's Garage. I think he's got a great channel. I haven't watched his video on it because he just published it on virtualizing TrueNAS, but he does it right because he passes through the HBA. If you're passing through the HBA, okay, that's a reasonable way to do it. You really want it to have bare metal access to the drive so you don't have problems. So if you're passing through the HBA, I think you're good. But you're also adding complexity to your life. Do you need that complexity? How much are you saving with that complexity? Some people, I get it. If you only have a more finite budget, but you really want to run some of the TrueNAS functions, wrapping it all into one machine can be a way to solve that problem. But you don't want to play with the liquid setup? Are you talking about the liquid ones that Wendell from Level 1 Tech's been talking about? That stuff's pretty cool. Or are you talking about the liquid cooled setup? Because those are cool as well. Got Tailscale pfSense accepting routes. One route is the same SUD as my pfSense, made of VLAN, but BSD doesn't like 2 routes at the same space. Probably has a problem with that. I don't know. I haven't run into that on I haven't tried to mix matching routes and see if Tailscale has a problem with it when it crosses boundaries on pfSense. I don't know. There's a possible, though. Got 2 servers, 144 terabyte RAID, running Access Camera Station. One is 90% full, takes forever to view footage, 50% full. How would you troubleshoot the slow one? RAID 6 is just going to be slow. I don't know about troubleshooting. It's going to be that much data on there. It's not going to be great. RAID 10 would probably be more ideal. So I don't know. It's not really a troubleshooting. I think you just you may have run into the limitations of the hardware that you're using. You may have to start upgrading it. Maybe an indexing problem is the other issue. Once it gets 90% full, it may not index it very well. Jason Slagle makes a really good point there. Some file systems in ZFS is problematic. You're going to get more fragmentation with the file system when it becomes that 90% full. As a pfSense user, is the Netgate appliance better at 10 gig SFP support? Like I know right now on customer hardware, some of the cheaper 10 gig NICs are not available to repository updates. I mean, if you're buying an appliance from Netgate that has 10 gig, I guarantee the 10 gig works on it. So maybe I don't understand your question. I mean, the support from the Netgate appliances is flawless for their 10 gig because the device ships with 10 gig. And as always, Jason, if you want to pop in, feel free. You have access to this. Both TB core instances are in Proxmox with HVA pass-through. Works great for me. I'm not ready to go to scale yet. Yeah, I mean, the HBA pass-through is not a bad way to do that. You're supposed to be working on the code for CodeMash. Oh, I didn't mention that. I'll be at CodeMash next week. So if any of you are going to CodeMash, Jason's teaching or speaking at CodeMash with John Hammond. They're doing some reverse engineering stuff. I'm looking for it. I'm sure it'll be a great talk. Ooh, it's running on Windows. I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't. I'm assuming it's probably running like ExactVision because those are Windows based. That's might be where the problem is with it. Might be an issue. All right. Now start driving a few other topics here. I will mention, because more and more people have been signing up for this, and I did send out my first newsletter, that if you go down here, oh, this is fixed. I don't know who fixed it. I don't know if I did or my web dev did. I can't remember, but this is fixed now. Someone pointed out this was broken last time. And the email address, this is for my newsletter. So if you are interested in joining my newsletter, that is a thing now that I got going, and I've got the newsletter going out for anyone interested. It just covers my videos and different topics and a few other things. Can you add and remove metadata drives and pools like you can a log drive in TrueNAS? I don't think so. I think once you add them, they are permanently part of it because data starts living on them. That's why it recommends putting them in mirrors. I don't think they can be removed. I'm going to do an updated video in there. Oh, answering the question Jason posted here. If it's NTFS, this is the person with the 90% full drive. It's probably fragmentation problem. RAID 6 is going to be 2x reads plus 1 for every write. And the seek time in those large drives is going to be terrible with it greater than 50%. Yes, that. And with less than 50%, it's probably indexing it right to RAM. Yep. I have a 10 gig pfSense with a 25 gig switch under my limited 10 gig without layer 3 support. Well, you can't route. If you have a 25 gig switch, you can have 25 gig on each network that has all those devices attached to it. What you're not going to do is route it through the pfSense at 25 gig, but also why would you? What is the use case by which you'd want to do that? You don't route your storage. I repeat that a lot because I run into a lot of times where people start routing their storage. You put all the devices that you need to talk to 25 that need to talk at that 25 gig speed on the same network, and that's how you avoid that problem. You cannot remove metadata drives from role. Yeah, I didn't think you could. I didn't think there's any route, any path to do that. Routed storage is a high unavailability layer. Yes. Well, the client file server is routed through the firewall, but the server is obviously not. Yes. Yeah. It happens a lot. It's one of those, why did someone build it this way? They weren't thinking properly. One more thing I'm going to mention here, back to my website, because I threw this. I just added another book. I got to fix the text. I got the text, like the text is good on this one, but I added another book to the reading list. This particular book here is quite good. Tracers in the Dark by Andy Greenberg. I just finished this one. I definitely give it a recommended list. I've been putting on here any of the tech books I read, and this particular one, wow, it really dives into the history of Bitcoin and tracking down criminals using Bitcoin. It's got some controversial topics because the question is, how much should you look into Bitcoin? The company Chainalysis is centered in this a lot. They're one of the first, but there's more companies doing this now that really dove into how trackable all of your Bitcoin transactions are. And it started in the beginning where people made the assumptions that it was not that traceable. Like it was very anonymous. It turns out Bitcoin in the infinite ledger that is just that, an infinite ledger of all the transactions. And they are able to absolutely, they go through the process that how law enforcement uses it, how they were able to bust all these different crime rings. It covers like the Silk Road, the Alpha Bay, and several others. It's all the different takedowns, all related to how they sorted out and identified them, but also how they were able to trace all the people's transactions. So one of those, I finished a book, and I like giving some of the book recommendations for people that might be into diving deep into technical topics. And that's what my book collection is focused on my site. Is I read a lot of books, but when I read a tech book, I add it to my site right there. So something. Have you read The Art of Computer Programming? Oddly, no, I have not. That is not in my list. But I've never been good at coding. I've read The Art of Deception and The Art of Intrusion. Both of those are really good books. I read those so long ago, I might want to read them again. Ghosts in the Wires. I've read, those are the 3 Kevin Mitnick books I read. Does he have other books? Maybe. Cult of the Dead Cow. Really like Cult of the Dead Cow. That was good. I'm a huge fan of Cory Doctorow. I threw a couple of his most recent books on here. I like his fiction too. So Cory Doctorow's Little Brother. My kids have read that. That's one of the ones I recommend a lot of people. It's a great one to start with. It's enjoyable even if you're not a kid. But this is a good one too. Algorithms to Live By. I like this one quite a bit. The Computer Science of Human Decisions. Algorithms to Live By is all computer science decisions and how they apply in real life. Solid book. I've made some notes from that book. If you want to know the origins of the internet, where wizards stay up late, if you would be shocked at how much it was packed into that book. Like, it is so much great history and detail. I'm glad there's a book to kind of categorize all of it. So yeah. When I say routed storage, I mean, don't put the storage network on a separate network. So you have my storage server should be on the same subnet as the thing that wants the storage. So my XCP-NG server wants to talk to my TrueNAS. Those are on the same network. They're not on separate networks. They don't route through my pfSense. The number of people that want to route their storage network through their firewall blows my mind. SMB over VPN sucks. It can be done, but I don't recommend it. That's one of those why things. I got a video where I actually show how latency affects dramatically your performance over SMB. SMB is not really well suited for high latency connections. So SMB degrades rapidly when you have any latency on your VPN. And you already have a lot more latency on a VPN than you do for a local network. So if you get a little bit more latency or a slightly slow connection, you have an exponential problem because it just, the protocol itself wasn't really designed to deal with that. You're tempting me to come on. Hey, you know where the buttons are. By sub nanosecond storage appliance and then route through firewall sounds like very good enterprise compliance logic. All that helps a lot. Thinking locally, my LAN traffic is going to go through the router and back. No, not. You got to remember, the gateway is there for when things got to get to the other side of that gateway. You do not, when they're all on the same network. pfSense for devices on the same subnet, nothing happens. They're all on the same subnet. Jason's trying to procrastinate doing really writing all of his stuff. He's got to present next week, so he's writing it now because the Homelab show was great with Tom and Jason this week. Jason should. People are peer pressuring Jason now. Looking to move to Pop! OS from Windows. Why did you choose Pop! OS or distros? It works great. It's polished. I don't really have a lot of other answers. Like, all the little shortcuts for Pop! OS just are really nice. Once I switched to it over Ubuntu, I just like the extra little things they did. I think since then, Ubuntu has probably gotten more polished. Pop! OS polished it up first. Then once I went to, I played with Ubuntu kind of recently, and I said, oh, that's nice, but I'm already using Pop! OS, so why would I switch? I know where everything is. It works really well, and I don't have any problems with it. He just loves, well, Jason's part of the community too. I mean, Jason's as much, if not more of a nerd than I am about it, especially networking stuff. That's Jason's jam. So, of course, so is programming and reverse engineering and hacking and running a tech company. So me and Jason, it was easy for us to partner. We already had a lot in common. The MacBook I have is an M1, so no, MacBook Air M1. You cannot run Pop! OS on that. Now there is a Linux project. I've already forgot the name of it. There is one to get Linux running on Apple Silicon. I think that's pretty cool that they're working on it. It's not feature complete yet, so there's that. Let's see here. All right, cool. Yo, aren't you supposed to be doing something else?
I'm trying to figure out how the Windows Form Designer works. That's what I'm procrastinating. I'm writing Windows applications in .NET. I have all the reasons in the world to procrastinate.
Yeah.
Doesn't Pop! OS have an ARM build?
The Apple Silicon is very unique. ASCII, I don't know how you say it.
Yeah, it doesn't have GP drivers.
Yeah. That's the challenge. My understanding is they got most everything working. I'm actually curious to try it on my MacBook at one point in time, like when it gets a little more. I mean, I love the Apple MacBook hardware. Apple's almost playing on a different level with it when you compare it to
Yeah.
some of the other laptops. That's why you have one.
Apparently, it runs. You can do it in parallels.
Yeah, but yeah, it's kind of. I don't know if the market will catch up because, like, when Mac's, what the M3 is out now, they're just playing a different game when you compare them to the Windows laptops. It's just, I don't know. They're so fast, they're so smooth. The battery life is insane. I can't buy a laptop especially for the price point that competes with my MacBook Air.
I buy the expensive, like mine's expensive, so there are definitely cheaper laptops.
Yeah,
the Air is a great price value like spot.
They killed it for there, and because to me, I always look at it because I don't use it for any of the horsepower. It's a terminal to me. It's a terminal with like an amazing 12 or 13 hour battery life. I think Matt was impressed because at the management meetings, the offsite management meetings, he's like, "You didn't plug it in." I'm like, "It's still got 50% after using it all day."
Mine does. I mean, mine does too. Like, it's insane. Yeah.
I see some people got the framework ones.
Yeah, those are nice. I mean, ARM is the secret there, right? Like Intel is so power hungry compared to ARM.
Yeah, and it goes a step further when you have one company designing the hardware and the software, it's going to be so much more well tuned than other ones. This is one of the reasons the Raspberry Pi is so well tuned for applications versus some of the clones, if you will, of the Raspberry Pi. The Raspberry Pi's had enough time to live an ecosystem. People have customized the hell out of it. They've tweaked it. They know exactly what to expect with that hardware and how to get the most out of it. Jeff Geerling did a great video talking about like the Pi alternatives and all the downsides of them, trying to get some of the little quirks you run into it if you have something more than basic application support you want.
Yeah. Hey, I figured a thing out. I hate Windows development. I popped on to talk about
sure.
SMB and iSCSI. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm curious how efficient a framework 16 extra battery will do. I don't know. I think the frameworks are pretty neat, but they're not going to be at the Mac level yet because it's that ARM, the ARM thing on there. That's the thing. But SMB iSCSI, this is a good topic. Why should we route these? Let's repeat this to the class.
I mean, latency, right? Like, I mean, on top of complexity, right? Your storage, what is one of the biggest metrics you look at when you're sizing storage? You look at round trip latency, right? Like you really want less than 1 millisecond response time, and you're not going to get that through any commodity routed device. There's some data center stuff that maybe can approach that, right? But it's just not great.
Yeah, it's a challenge we run into way too often in the business consulting that we do. Like, oh, you're having problems with your storage servers. Oh, why did you set it up this way? Why did you tie it through this?
I mean, admittedly, Matt, Matt's the one that added routable interfaces to most of our storage networks because he got tired of having to go through jump boxes to basically manage things that are too stupid to have dedicated management interfaces. But then he, at some point or another, somebody's mounting iSCSI volumes over like that routed interface. And I'm like, don't do that.
Yeah, that's where you get yourself into trouble. You can use remote network storage in XCP-NG. I mean, you can, but once again, you don't want to route it. That's not the good idea. A different topic is going to be if you're sending things to S3 from the Zen Orchestra backups, that's different. That's not the same as routed interface. It does have that ability. It's got some interesting abilities actually, because they added the ability now to clone backup repositories. So you can back up to your local one with low latency and then clone it and stream the data to another one. So you can have your offsite backup stream to a completely another backup location. And they do it that way because the backups themselves, because they can, and they've gotten better even with higher latency links, but they pull your Delta backups using NBD, network
Network
they
block
pull
device.
them right from the system. That's how they get them really fast. But of course, their last blog post talked about the latency challenges that are created when you have it, and they've actually figured out how to even optimize it more when it's under a high latency link, and also let you turn it up faster when it's under a low latency situation.
Yeah, I mean, so VMware has some secrets for stretched like vSAN clusters and things like that, and there are some proprietary things you can do. And WAN accelerators do exist, right? Like if you want to go down a rabbit hole, go look at the Windows like branch storage stuff that basically does like local SMB caching of remote volumes to speed up and deal with some of the latency problems. That's like a day of your life you'll never get back, and then you'll try to configure it. And it's like a month of your life you'll never get back. But yeah, I mean, even Microsoft understands that that's not the CIFS and SMB aren't a great solution. There's too many acknowledgments, so it's too many round trip times.
Yeah, when you look at this, and this is, I did that video, I think mid last year about SMB or VPN, and I played with a fun feature inside of pfSense. If you go to any firewall rule in pfSense, there's an advanced option. If you scroll down the bottom of those advanced options, they have a few ways you can introduce jitter, latency. You can actually insert that as an option in the rule. And I just use that option to create latency to show you and simulate what a network would look like with latency on it. And you can dial in how much latency you want. And because of the way SMB does all these back and forth acknowledgments, like, hey, I got a tiny bit of the file. I sure did. And it goes back and forth sending that gets to be an exponential problem. It's actually one of the reasons why the time calculation is so hard when it starts calculating the files. You'll watch a big file. It goes, oh, okay, I don't have as many acknowledgments, but a bunch of little files will get the numbers flying all over the place for it to try to guess how long it's going to take to get a transfer done.
Yeah. Yes, correct. I mean, there's a lot of, I think I'd have to double check, but I think like file creation is like 6 or 7 individual round trips, and latency just adds up.
Is there something on the internet that recommends routing storage? Why do people do it? Yes, there's a lot of bad forum posts.
The Venn diagram of people that don't understand the difference between layer 2 and layer 3 and route storage is almost a circle.
That's the good answer for that. How about routing storage over layer 3 switch? No, you shouldn't. But if you have a layer 3 switch that is able to have like ASICs on it and could do it, you could. There's a solve for that. But now you're talking about a switch so expensive.
Yeah, I mean, you can do it, right? Like it's at some point or another, serialization delay actually matters, right? Like it takes time. Like you can't, even on a local LAN going through a couple of layer 3 switches, you're still looking at a couple milliseconds typically, right? Like when you trace right through all those hops, because, think about, now we're going deep network nerd, right? Think about your transversals up and down the OSI stack, right? You got to go, your application layers got to get packaged inside of an IP, well, an iSCSI packet, which then gets put inside of a UDP packet, right? Which then gets put in an IP down to a datagram, physically converted and serialized over the wire. Then each switch in the middle has to undo that, at least to the UDP layer, right? Or, I mean, a layer 3 switch may only take it to the IP layer, right? It may not do layer 4. It may only inspect the IP header, but it still has to then re-encapsulate it on the new it's not going to happen instantly.
Yeah. You always have to think about how the bits flow and all the things and all the steps. Me and Jason were talking about this the other day. It's kind of, because we're both old school. We've been doing this for a long time, but we think of things that almost like, I would say like the machine assembly language, because not that we write code in assembly language. I think about it from the fundamentals of that. How is this bit going to get from where it is? How are these ones and zeros going to turn into the next piece, to eventually come out to be that piece of data as a whole? And I think if you take some fundamentals of it, like peel the mystery back for how these work, you go, oh, that's logical. It has to be broken down in these ways, or even like Jason said, people who may not know the difference between layer 2, layer 3, understanding those OSI models, they matter. Everything is fundamentally still built on this for all the networking, even though it's been years since I've studied them. They're still as relevant today as they were some old book. What do you got here? Oh yeah. TCP/IP Illustrated, Volume 1. How old is that book?
Let's see. 94?
1994.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. This is the one though. If you want to actually learn and understand it, this is the one I would probably get. It's the one I tend to use for in networking classes.
Internetworking with TCP/IP.
Comer.
Douglas Comer.
By Doug Comer. I think it's a similar vintage.
Does the rule for not routing storage apply to user shares? We have a file server on a network and users accessing a workstation. Well,
no, maybe
it's a little different.
It's complicated.
Yeah. If you have a very large network, you may have segments of your network and you may not have a server with multiple network interfaces on it. So you have a network interface in each network, and then you may have to do it that way. I mean, when you talk about, companies with thousands of users, yeah, then you have you have to start diagramming it a little bit differently when you lay that out.
Here, even worse.
The C ANSI programming language.
Look at the authors.
Brian and Dennis Ritchie. Holy crap.
It's KNR of KNR, the KNRC standard.
Yeah, that's a classic there.
Yep.
I
mean, this one was typeset, I'm pretty sure, on like a typewriter. Unix is a registered trademark of AT&T, it says on the author page. This book was written in 1978. This printing is from 1988, this version of it.
Wow. That is a classic there. I may go back and maybe I'll get some old books and read them. It's been a long time.
If you want any of these, I'll bring them in. You can grab them, read them, and give them back.
Yeah, I learned on a lot of those old books. I don't know which ones I read. It's whatever ones were in my high school, which were back in the 90s. Like that's what I had access to. Here's an easy one. What is the best practice for on-prem Windows servers running DHCP with UniFi gateways and switches? Run them. I mean, just don't let UniFi take over your DHCP. If you have a Windows domain, Windows should hand out the DHCP and the DNS.
Generally, although understand the caveats of that, because depending on what day of the week it is and what segment the moon is in, it may or may not require a cal for every device it's giving a DHCP lease out to.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know anyone that actually does it, but if you actually read the license terms, I believe you are technically required to have a cal for every device that gets an IP.
Yeah. I remember I was laughing really hard. I was listening to Paul Thurrott go over licensing changes. He does the Windows Weekly podcast. I got to meet him in person. He's a super interesting guy. And he was talking about how hard it is for anyone to really solve the licensing. He goes, there's no such thing as a Fortune 1000 company that's fully compliant. It just doesn't exist.
Nope. Every single one I've dealt with that's gotten audited is out of fine.
Yeah. Microsoft they've made it so complicated. It's an impossible task to be properly licensed. And even if you were to achieve it, you've only achieved it until they're 6 months later when they change the licensing rules a little bit. Generally, though, you want walled off. You want your PC network, like where your workstations and things are, that should be a network. If you have a bunch of random IoT things, that shouldn't probably be on the same network as all your Windows computers. Maybe the printers will be on that same network because printers prefer it, but segment things out that aren't your Windows or things Windows needs access to, like printers. Maybe scanners. Printers are definitely the big hated part.
Printers. Yeah, I figured out how to add a picture. Now I can rickroll the class.
It's like HIPAA.
HIPAA.
That's a different set of complexities. Yeah. We're getting into the other fun stuff, the CMMC complexities and
no, Brett had a HIPAA complexity before he left. Him and Lori. Lori was getting mad at the person she was talking to on the phone because they didn't understand it.
Oh. I love when doctors have asked me, what are you, the HIPAA police? What are you going to turn me in? I'm just letting you know the laws are here.
Maybe.
At least it's been a while since I had someone tell me that. Although I've had someone that wanted me to go over their HIPAA, but when I sat down with them, it was one of the quickest times I've ever left a meeting. They wanted me to backdate all the stuff to say that they were compliant 6 months ago. I'm like, what do you mean compliant 6 months ago? I just met you. I didn't know you 6 months ago. Well, we're kind of going through a little problem right now. Oh, well, I can't help with that. Oh, we need someone who can. And you came highly recommended. I said, well, I don't like jail.
Yeah.
So,
I come highly recommended for the same reasons. I won't do that.
yeah, I said, so they said, but you can't, can you recommend someone? I said, I don't know anyone shady enough to do what you need done. I said, I'll be honest. I just don't have friends that low. And they're like, but it's a big deal that we have this dated about 6 months ago right now, because he might lose his license or something like that. I'm like, yeah, that's definitely a you problem. I'm sorry. And I left and I never heard from them. They were gone. I remember noticing, because I know where they were located. And I noticed, I don't know, it took a long time. I feel like it was almost 2 years later that the signs were off the building.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that for many, many years, HIPAA had no teeth, right? So like no one paid attention to it. And now they're starting to actually pay attention to it. So people are like, oh, I don't have to pay attention to that because no one's ever gotten fined. And now people are.
Yep. They're getting fined. And some of these people have committed some egregious slip ups and poor behaviors and things like that. Oh, FedRAMP. There's a fun one.
Please no. I think I would walk away. That would have to be there would have to be a lot of zeros on that for me to bother.
Yeah, it's a big no. Backdated HIPAA compliance. I'm sure it's a big pharma tech bro could start out for them. Oh, yes. I'm sure there's definitely some big pharma tech bro ready to just dive into that.
Yeah.
A question for you, Jason. There was some dead mini PCs. Which ones died on you? You said some died.
I've had several of the top 10 ones die.
Okay, it's the top 10s. I couldn't remember the name.
I don't think they die. I think this is the shitty SSDs they use in them are what dies. We've had several of the SSDs die. So like I think that and they overheat. Like I think if we were going to use them going forward, I would take each one of them, I would open it up, double check the thermal paste, because like the only thing cooling those things is a thermal contact pad that takes it to the chassis. And if you watch any of the STH's videos, he's also noted that a lot of times they're just not bonded very well.
Yeah.
And then I would just order them without SSDs or RAM because what they send you is trash.
Yeah, they're not. It's kind of weird. I like the latest one, Serve the Home Reviewed, the solid state box, but it only has a C300 in there. That processor is just not fast enough to get a lot of work done.
I like that one that he just reviewed with the Atom processor. Like, as long as if you're really looking to use it for a router, that thing is a workhorse.
Yeah. Well, that's actually that C300. And the reason he brought up compared it to Netgate and to TrueNAS, my TrueNAS Mini, that's what it's got, is that same Atom processor in there.
Yep.
That's an old school workhorse. And it's got the QAT crypto acceleration, which is going to be good for I love the fact that it's got the connector for direct attached storage on it too.
Yeah, well, I mean, the wrong connector, but a connector nonetheless.
Yeah, I do like it. I love that it's a wrong connector.
Yeah. It's like clearly, oh man, we got this connector on this reference motherboard we bought. What do we do with it? Oh, we'll just put a hole in the back of the case.
This is great. But I like that it's the internal connector you're connecting.
Yeah, so 100%.
It's not made for external, but it works.
I was wondering where he got that cable.
It's they have an internal to external cable that run through the back.
Does it come with one?
I don't think it comes with it, but you can. They're findable, I guess.
People sell them because you just make a hole in the back of the chassis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I don't know. People do weird things. Actually, Wendell did a video recently where I think he did one with Gamers Nexus as well. He started breaking down the mystery connectors, all the different breakout cables that they have now for all your PCI to NVMe adapters and just the weird shit you have to go through to get these things connected. But the fact is they make them. There's so many random ones.
Yep.
There's some neat stuff they got on there, but this box is pretty cool. Yep. That's
the weird connector.
Mm-hmm. But this has 2.5 gig and 10 gig on it. And if I'm not mistaken, this one's available on Amazon. Let me pull it up real quick.
Okay. I think we've confused the masses now looking at Michael's comment.
Oh, did we?
Don't route block storage. There, I said it.
Oh, there we go. Good clarification.
You can route Samba or other file related storage things, NFS, Samba. Understand limitations. High latency links. Locally routing SMB is going to be just fine. WAN routing SMB is going to be meh because it's very sensitive to latency.
Yeah. iSCSI, really, iSCSI and NFS, just avoid routing those.
Yeah. I mean, you can route. I've routed NFS plenty, but again, like understand the limitations of doing it. NFS is not a block level, right? So
No.
like iSCSI, FCOE, those are probably the only two you're ever going to come across. You'll probably actually never come across FCOE. So it's mostly just iSCSI.
Yep. And I have a video about storage design. That's what I titled it. I did it only like a month ago. I put graphics in there of what you can and can't route and what that all means to help explain it to people a lot better. But this little box from Serve the Home, this is impressive for $359. That's a lot of connectivity on this box.
Yep.
16 gigs of RAM, 512 gig SSD for $350. There's not much cost savings to go to the, what is there, $20 to drop it down to like a 8 gig. Just go, the 359 one's the best deal. Not much more, $400. You get 32 gigs of RAM.
I really like that you can get these on Amazon and not have to order them from Alibaba and eventually get them.
And I love that they're passively cool. I debated about buying. I don't have a use for it. I just think it's cool. I thought about buying it.
I know they are neat.
I got that picture so perfectly aligned. I didn't know if they just photoshopped the face.
Oh, 100%.
We can't even trust the images on these. But this does have NVMe on the inside and 2 SATA connectors. Now you can only figure out how to get one of them connected because there's not room for 2 drives inside of it. But they did there's 2 SATA connectors on it. So there's that. There's your second one right there.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I wonder what the boards are. I mean, so these are clearly just reference boards they're buying from somewhere and stuffing in a case. Like, I wonder what they were made for.
I wonder a lot about that too, because I've always wondered where's the other device that they cloned this from? I don't think they engineered it.
Yeah.
Like, who is it built for originally?
Yeah, I think some of them are probably HMIs, honestly. Right? Like, or some sort of industrial thing, or, these could be, I don't know, like, I don't know what else that would be for. Like, there are so many weird design decisions. Like, why is there a SATA on that when there's no reasonable way to mount a hard drive in it? Like, why? Why is there an SODIMM that doesn't fit in the case? Why?
Yeah, comes with free random BIOS firmware.
Yeah,
and you'll never get an update for it. But I don't. So this question comes up a lot. What is the likelihood that someone engineered a backdoor into the BIOS that implants something? It just seems it's statistically improbable. I feel
we need to do a whole thing on threat modeling.
Yeah,
that should not be in your threat model.
Yeah,
botnetting is the worst you're going to be worried about, right? Like, no one's coming after your Homelab data.
Yeah. And like I think we said this before, no one's going to burn their O day to crack your Homelab either.
Not happening. I mean, you might come home one day and it's mining Bitcoin and it's part of a botnet, but that's about the extent of your problem.
Now, what we did see, this is probably 3 or 4 years ago. I thought this was funny. And it's what makes people go that step further of maybe there's a BIOS problem. Not likely, but not likely at all. But the one thing they did do is they shipped with a backdoored version of pfSense shipped on these. And I'm like, why would you trust their load of pfSense?
I mean, most of them, the hardware inside of most of these things, I think most of them would support running U-Boot or one of the other like open source BIOSes on them. There's nothing super secret about it. I don't think most of them require binary blobs to actually successfully start up because they're not using proprietary things like the Pis. Pis are actually really terrible about it. I think most of them require binary blobs to actually boot.
Yep.
this commodity x86 hardware does not. So you can almost certainly just load U-boot or one of the other core boot, something like that on it if you're worried about it.
Yeah, one of the LEs had a rat pre-installed.
Yeah.
Well, and that came up when I first was talking about like how these little mini PCs ship with Windows on them. I'm like, well, the first thing I do is format it. I don't know. I didn't spend any time looking at the Windows on it. People ask me if I looked at it or scanned to see if they put a backdoor. And I'm like, why? I'm going to format it. Matter of fact, if Lenovo ships me one, I'm going to format that one too. I don't want the vendor's OEM garbage on there. I usually want a nice, fresh, clean install with whatever we want on there.
We used to do that when you now use IMI to handle that. And instead of blowing the OS away and reinstalling it, that we have just IMI formulas that just clear all that crap out.
Yeah.
So,
which is another way to handle it. But if you're a home user and you don't have access to something like we do, like IMIBot, then just format and reload it and clean it and load it the way you want. The other thing too is like one of the Acemagics has that little stupid screen on it. As a matter of fact, I got that one sitting here. I reviewed this one too. This has got that.
Yeah, I feel about that the same way I feel about like RGB. Like my case down here has really nice RGB in it. It's always red, and I never look at it.
Yeah. This you can't see it because it's off because that's a screen on it. Because apparently that was a necessary thing. And the software gets flagged by Windows Defender and removed as soon as it boots and updates. You have to tell. I think they finally got it not flagged, but I found a forum post that I linked to when I did the video. Someone's kind of reverse engineered how the screen works on it. I forget. It's like an Arduino and something else. Someone figured out what they used and figured out how to control it. And it started off someone else. I think they just copied someone else's open source project. So someone found some other source code on GitHub for it, which not surprising. They didn't put a lot of effort into it. Just a weird choice they make on some of these mini PCs.
Yeah. I broke my code.
Chinese mini PCs have malware backdoor built in the BIOS or something on board in hardware. No, I just don't see that with them. It would be too easily found and caught for one. It's actually hard work to do that. And they're trying to get a low cost PC out there. Their goal is not necessarily to do that. Now, the software they install on the systems, that might be a little different because there's plenty of garbage malware. And I don't even know if it's on purpose. Sometimes it's just garbage software. It's not necessarily meant to be nefarious. They found the lowest paid worker that could get Windows loaded and said, go figure out how to get Windows to work on all these. What's the license? I don't know. You have to go Google and figure that out. How to get Windows on these PCs.
I mean, there's a bunch of OEM keys that you can use that they may or may not survive activation, but they will allow installation.
I didn't think about this. Someone pointed out with the OEM keys, the reason some of them are so cheap, because I get offers for people who want me to promote their OEM keys. And I always think that's kind of funny, but why are they so cheap? A lot of them are bought in foreign countries. So they're playing the exchange rate games. And I didn't know that. I think it was Wendell that was explaining how that works.
Yeah, so that's actually very much a thing I hadn't even considered because a lot of these enterprisey softwares have differential price lists, and in developing countries, they will sell it considerably cheaper and offer way more incentives than selling it in the US. And there's actually other games you can play too, because partnership level, right? Like is a Microsoft, we're a silver partner in various pieces, right? We're not cool enough to be gold or anything, but the requirements for me to hit gold in like a developing country are a fraction of what it is in the US. So if I could go sell a bunch of developing country keys to somebody, there would be very shady partnership reasons to do that.
Yeah. Thank you very much for a donation. 10 gigabit. Even if you don't saturate throughput, can you get benefit of deeper queue, lower latency? At least that's how a colleague justified.
Maybe
not.
Yes.
Your latency usually, I mean, 10 gig and 1 gig don't have big latency changes.
Yeah, I mean, well, the serialization has to happen 10 times faster. It's actually not 10 times faster because ironically enough, most 10 gig that you're going to run is not actually 10 gig. It's actually 4 bonded 250 megabit channels or 2.5 gigabit channels, right? So you're going to have the serialization delay of a 2.5 gig Ethernet link instead of a 10 gig Ethernet link. So 2.5 times better, but we're talking about nanoseconds here.
Yeah. I pointed this out that it's so indistinguishable when you think about the muxing that has to happen versus a DAC cable versus like a fiber cable. There's different because it's got to convert each one of these, but they add such small amounts of latency to it, they're not significant.
Yeah, I mean, and the other half of it, Q, right? Like, so I will give you my QoS story when we're talking about queues here. QoS is a tool for deciding whose life is terrible when things are bad.
Yeah.
if you're at the point where you're dealing with queues, then you've probably already lost. And we have a client that is running into that on traditional, like I think that it's a 3-par maybe storage array.
There's a 3-par.
And it's running, there's an IOPS limit on that because it's spinning Rust, and it performs fine until you hit that IOPS like cliff, and then as soon as you hit it, the whole thing falls over dead.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Like the deeper queue, yes, in theory, you probably have slightly bigger buffers on 10 gig. Do you need slightly bigger buffers? Probably not. And you can definitely find enterprise class 1 gig gear that will have just as big of buffers.
Yeah. So not so much. Most of these little boxes, I think it's referring to, they don't have the money or time to create backdoor BIOS. Yeah, I mean, it takes some time if you want to create those. This was the argument when who is it that wrote the article? Bloomberg, when they came out with there was allegedly these chips and backdoors on, they hit them for Supermicro. They've never redacted, they've never confirmed. They kept saying evidence was coming, and then they quit talking about it, and we're hoping everyone will forget about it. But it takes a lot. People took the time to show what it would take to do what was claimed in the Bloomberg article, that Supermicro had been infiltrated by companies installing these backdoors on these chips and installing them on there. That is no small feat to be able to pull that off. There's a lot of complexities in it. And I thought that was kind of cool. The hacker community really showed like, this is what it would really take to do that. And you're like, oh, that's actually a lot of engineering. And even after you do it, it's not like a surefire way. You have to figure out how to get in and get around the OS and inject something into it. Just being on the board doesn't make it easy to insert something into the OS.
Yeah. It does happen though, but again, like it's not.
Oh, the NSA's got their means.
Yeah. To what end though? Right. Like, I go back to a thing that I think I said on your vlog that was relatively controversial, which was like the penetration of things like MikroTik inside of enterprise is relatively low, right? Like unless you have a wide audience, right? These boxes, the target audience for these boxes is Homelabs. Like it's not like Ford is going out and installing hundreds of these crappy top ton boxes, because at their volume, they would make their own.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I remember I had a coworker many, many, many years ago. He was always obsessed with that they were going to come get him. I finally let him know, and this is true for some of the other people, dude, you're just not that important. Like they're not gonna, the might of the government is not coming down on top of you to he was a Y2K doom prepper. They were going to be specifically after him because he knew too much. I'm like, no, you don't. I've worked with you. Sorry, dude. You're not the one they'd ever be after. Yeah, the same thing. There's not a lot of value in Homelabs in terms of hacking. Not that that's some excuse to let your guard down, but in terms of, are they going to burn their 0 day to get to you? I think this is a good topic. Maybe me and Jason just to dive into sometime. It's just threat modeling things. What are the real threats that you should be focusing on? What are your priorities? Which ones are really? I've seen people go on total rants about locking down every single unused port at their home. And I'm like, is that really your threat model? Someone's going to come in and plug something into my rack?
Potential lawyer's office, we were pitching at one point or another, telling me they don't want to move their email to Microsoft because they don't want Microsoft to read their email, yet they're running an out-of-date, unpatched version of Exchange on site. And it's like, that's the Microsoft reading your email shouldn't be in your threat model, because guess what you're reading your email with off your Exchange server that Microsoft wrote, Outlook that Microsoft wrote. If they wanted to read your email, they have nine other ways to do it. Right?
Exactly.
Like, they don't.
In reality, is running an out-of-date Exchange server. Someone besides Microsoft's going to eventually end up reading all your emails.
Yeah, I mean, same thing. The MSP space is notorious for that. It's like, oh, vendors are all going to get us popped. Yeah, that's probably true, but like the RMM with our MFA on it and the reuse of passwords is probably actually going to get you popped. At least evidence suggests 80% of the time that's what's going to get you popped. Like fix all that stuff, and then we can worry about your vendors getting you popped.
Yeah, I'm not sure why you would have UniFi using DHCP relay. Why would you have UniFi between your Windows servers? You should probably like post a diagram of your
Yeah.
network in the forums or something so we can better understand and answer the question. I mean, do you have that many thousands of users that you've got to segment your network? And if you got a network that big, is breaking it all up with UniFi the best solution?
The other thing is that what you'll often find is that on a lot of these systems, you can't run DHCP relay and DHCP server on the same system. It's unsupported on actually a very large number of products to do that, because they both use the same port. They use slightly different daemons, right? Like, so it's very, very common for you to not be able to do both on one device.
Right. Ah, the real threats, users. Yes. Some people unpatched exchange for sure.
Well, I think I have this thing to the point where I can actually write code now to validate the key, which is good because I'm going to reuse 90% of this code for both challenges I'm writing.
Oh, okay. So you're writing a CTF for CodeMash?
So we're teaching people to reverse engineer. I stood up, actually, if you go to ctfd.kd8vfn.org, you can see my CTFD. And
drop
we
a link
are,
or send me Slack it
I'll
to
send
me.
it to you in Slack.
Okay.
It's my ham call sign, which means your viewers will be able to find where I live, but whatever.
You have a unique enough name. You're not actually that hard to find, and you already know that. They figured out where I live. Not that that's hard either.
I figured out where your office was playing the Google image dork game rather than finding it. What was that thing we were GeoGuessr kind of thing we were doing at MySecCon? Yeah. So basically, the labs are all going to be in a CTFD, and then at the end of the class, for like the last 40 minutes, I'm going to have like 2 or 3 other challenges off of CrackMe's, and I'm going to give a $50 gift card away.
Cool.
Yeah.
Someone says you've given your call sign. Yeah, the chat has a long memory. We'll just say that. Yeah. They bring up stuff I talked about like 2 years ago. People are like, what happened to that thing you did too? What do you mean what happened? I forgot I did it. That's what happened to it. Yep, lots of those errors.
Yeah. I'm like the easiest guy. I'm like the security guy that just doesn't try to protect their identity, right? Like, I'm not that interesting. Dox me. Like,
yeah, it's annoying if someone tries to pizza you or something like that.
Yeah, or swat you. Like,
yeah,
I'm worried. Like, but I don't think you, and definitely not I, run with the crowd that I expect would swat.
No, we generally pull a more mature audience. I think.
Yeah.
If you're into the kids and games, that's where that. Because I've had a friend that had to deal with that a lot, but then there's no question as to why. He was an asshole running a gaming server.
Yeah.
And he was definitely part of the problem. And he's like, yeah.
Well, and one of our sheriffs lives like across the street around the cul-de-sac a bit. And so I'm sure this could be a fun game for them if somebody did that to try to track them down.
Yep.
I don't know. My OSINT's pretty good, so I don't want to find out, but
yeah, no, it's one of those pain in the butt things. Because I didn't think to I wasn't thinking about it when I got this house to put it all inside of another name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that domain doesn't even have domain privacy on, so like several of my domains don't.
Yeah. There's always people who, I don't know, they behave badly. I just ignore them and move on with my day. I got plenty of other things to do. Oh, what else do we got?
I actually never did your 4-hour live stream.
Oh, I don't know when I'm gonna do the 4-hour live stream. Not today. Today is not going.
Yeah, definitely not today. I still have to go run 3 miles. So
Oh,
I'm putting that up too. I'm procrastinating my running by coding, and I'm procrastinating my coding by being here.
So it's, what is that called? Productive procrastination. We're still doing something, right? We're still participating in the community, and
it's fine. I actually, again, while I was sitting on this call, I figured out enough Windows for I use WinForms instead of WPF, or WFP, but I think I have enough to actually make this thing work. Yay.
people signing you up for an MLM scheme. Well, it turns out I attend things like Chamber of Commerce events. It's kind of the same thing. There's enough people there always trying to sell me some soap on a rope BS. Which, by the way, I realize I've said soap on a rope a lot, and people don't know what that is. That's related to Amway. I was talking to Eric, and Eric says, Eric is like, what does that mean? And I'm like, oh, Amway. He goes, I know what Amway is, like the whole MLM thing. He's like, yeah. And I said, Amway's product from the early days was soap on a rope. And so, fun.
Sign me up for Kaseya sales calls. I don't think they will call me much these days.
Kaseya, no. Are you banned from their events officially or unofficially?
I don't know. I've not tried to go to another one to find out.
We know Kaseya doesn't like Slagle.
They do not.
He's hit a few other companies up, but your goal is to better them.
Yes.
You may first aggravate them.
Yes. I usually, if I have a way to affect the change I'm trying to make without being a loudmouth asshole on the internet, I will use that way. When it fails, the second way comes out.
Yeah. You got 4-node server chassis. I want to build a new. I like those 4-node server chassis. There's a couple companies making those now. So
you'll have to come to the Buckeye. We have so it's a twin. It's one of those Supermicro 4-node 2U boxes that's running our hosting, the production hosting environment at Buckeye.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Let me know. Maybe. Do you think when we move out of the other location, they'll let us do anything there, or they don't like you already?
I mean, yeah, sure. Come with me. Come in and film. It'll be like the third week in January.
Yeah, and then when they say, "Hey, never film here again," like, good, we're leaving.
Yeah. Oh no! Oh no! Kick me out! Oh,
okay. All right. Well, bye. 4-node chassis. I want to build an XCP-NG. Would you put each chassis in its own pool? Would you bother putting them all in one pool? I put them all in one pool because it just makes it easier. Once you define all the networking in XCP-NG is defined by the pool, not by the host. So if you have 4 nodes that are the same, it becomes arbitrarily easy to put them all in the same resource pool. That way, anything you define, you don't have to define 4 times. Mm-hmm. Then if you have a shared storage, even if you don't have shared storage, the pool is a good thing. But if you have shared storage, now it's even easier because if you add the storage, it automatically adds it to all 4 of the nodes. I got to do an updated video on networking because that's where people definitely get confused with XCP-NG. They'll start to try to set it on the host. You don't set the networking on a host. You define it by the pool. Where that gets more confusing is when you have mismatched hosts, because if you define ETH0, ETH1, etc., and what you want attached to them, but if you're not sure what ETH0 is on your other ones or you want them to be different, I have a script that will set them differently. It's not hard to do. You go to the command line, you can flip-flop them. They have a utility for it. But if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah, and sometimes you add extra interfaces to a pfSense box, it reboots, and all your interfaces are renumbered.
That one too. That happens in VMware as well.
Yeah. Well, it was in VMware, and it was yesterday? 2 days ago?
Yep. We were building out the updated lab. Yeah. I still does XCP-NG support fiber channel?
Should.
I think so.
Yeah, for any of the supported cards, I don't see why it wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, almost certainly QLogic and Emulex cards. I forget who bought each of those things,
but they've been around, and I'm sure that they're a supported one.
QLogic is Marvel now.
Yeah, they actually have a lot of different storage support for XCP-NG because they even do have some native Ceph stuff.
Oh, QLogic. Interesting. Oh, I don't know. Oh, Cavium. That's who bought. And Cavium was required by Marvel.
So if you go to their site, they have them all.
And Broadcom bought Emulex.
Yeah, they have what is thin provision, what is thick provision, different storage types, block based, but then the cards themselves, and if you
Have a go.
just present any of the storage to them, you can like if you present it in Linux as a drive, for example, because we've got a few clients that are just running Dell RAID arrays. We just present all those drives as a drive,
Yep.
and then let the Dell system handle the RAID, and it works fine.
Yeah.
Well, it works as good as Dell RAID works, but for the client use case, it's good enough.
Yeah, the opposite problem is usually a problem more for me, is that like getting the RAID cards to give you single drive volumes so you can run CFS on them is a pain in the butt. You, in that case, typically just want an HBA and not a RAID adapter.
I've been working on networking docs for XCP-NG. The add remove was recently redone. Working on next steps with rename interface. Oh, nice. Might have a PR for this weekend. Yeah, there's one thing is nice is they're very open to the community can edit and push some of the documents. I've helped them with documentation and things like that and building things on there. It's a very open community, which has been their openness with the community, and the contributions back have really helped iterate a lot faster.
That is universally true.
Multipath, you might need to add the devices.
Yeah, you have to go to like wizard school to understand all the options to configure multipathy, because sometimes you need AULA, sometimes there's proprietary things. Yeah.
Yep. I've done, I never did a video on it, but I did it because I did consulting on it. I turned on multipathing and got it all set up. It's not hard to do in XCP-NG. They actually have it all inside the UI.
It's not hard to do, but depending on your backend storage, there are things you have to do for it to work correctly. So as an example, if you're using a TrueNAS backend, even one of the, like, say you're using a high availability, what is it, M50, I think, the one you can put 2 controller nodes in it, there are almost certainly options you have to present to your multipathy if you're doing any sort of multipath stuff to make it survive a reboot, or the timeouts won't be right. Like things will, it's less big deal for TrueNAS, but things that are like a controller based, where one controller holds is primary for the LUN and the second one is secondary, and it has to go through both. Like it's not as easy as just set it and forget it. It'll work. It will work suboptimally, and it may fall over when one of the controllers goes down.
Yeah. Once you get into the complicated M40, M50, the dual controller systems,
3 par.
I've never tried it on Synology. I think Synology supports multipath, don't they? That's a Google search. So.
Yeah, and Alex is right there. Traditional SAN problems. I mean, almost all the vendors release documentation on how to set up multipathy in Red Hat 6, 7, 8. Pick one, right? That closely matches the Debian version, or I guess XCP-NG is CentOS based on the backside anyways. So just go find the docs for your vendor for the version of Red Hat that the version of XCP-NG you're using is upstreamed, and follow those docs, and it'll work just fine.
Yeah, MPIO. The confusing parts is you can't just have them on the same subnet. They got to have 2 subnets in TrueNAS and then tie them together.
Everywhere that's true.
Yeah. But it creates confusion because people were trying to force it onto the same one.
Yep. Or they start trying to do leg in or LACP and not realizing how the hashing works. And they're like, why am I only using one link? It's like, because everything hashes to the same like hash value.
Yep.
Don't do that.
Because someone had made an attempt and it was broken. That's how the consulting call came in. So I set it up and I was like, okay, make sure I understood how it worked, got it working.
Yeah.
Then sorted out all the things they had done wrong.
Yeah, that's a very common dumb that I see people do when they're doing iSCSI is their inclination is, well, I'm just going to run this like any other networking where I do multiple links and I aggregate them using like LAGB or LACP or one of the aggregation protocols, not realizing that I only have one data stream here, so it's not going to go any faster. It's only going to saturate one link.
Port forwarding would be a cool video with 2 routers. One is for dial-in. I know.
Come on. We could probably, there's a port master in the basement we can dig out.
Yeah, that is kind of one of my, I want to catch up on a few things that I've finished the data center video. I started editing it, and once again, I'm doing other things instead of because the other big boy servers are leaving, I have to finish anything I'm doing with those. Our amazingly 14 million passwords in a few seconds server.
I want one, but man, the video cards are the cheapest I could find them. I'm like, maybe I'll just buy a couple of those. The cheapest I could find them is like $3,500 a piece.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah. The bigger problem is, and maybe the chat here will know, like, can you just grab random, like, I don't think you can just put GPUs in random servers because you don't have the power to drive them.
Yeah, they have to have the right,
yeah,
all the power. Yeah, because of the connectors and things like that.
I mean, that has 8. I mean, again, I think we made that server cranky with the power draw on it.
Yeah,
about what actually happened, but I blew the circuit breaker. I blew surge suppressor circuit breakers on multiple surge suppressors. I started splitting the power up, eventually blew the in-wall circuit breaker, and then had to take extension cords to get half the server's power supplies to another circuit breaker.
Yeah, it's needing all that connectivity that we had to make this thing work.
Oh, it must have gotten mentioned somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think me and you mentioned it. I think in the last live
yes,
stream.
There is definitely a picture. Nothing was damaged.
No.
I would have fixed it if it was damaged. It did take a little bit of magic eraser to the top of the case chassis because there was a little bit of mark on it, but nothing was harmed in my burn-in testing of that server.
Yeah, those video cards are expensive. That's a huge part of that. I mean, that's roughly $100,000 server, right around there.
Yep. I think it was like 85 or something like that. Their cost.
Yeah. Fun stuff. Gives some character.
Yeah, it's fine. It's it was my dumb mistake. When I picked up the power cable to plug it in, I'm like, man, this power cable is pretty thin, and I didn't even think twice.
It was some real burn-in testing, as someone said. Yeah. Where do you source something like that from? And you buy it right from Supermicro.
I got Ingram. Yeah, I mean, Supermicro, we sat with them to do the specs because getting validated servers that do that stuff is harder than getting servers. There are a lot of considerations, like, do you have enough PCIe lanes, right? Like, do you have a proper RAM config to actually feed data to these things fast enough? Do you have enough power? It's not just a matter of like buying a commodity off the shelf. I mean, first of all, your first challenge is this has 8 A6000s in it. So you have to find a motherboard that has 8 X16 PCIe slots on it. Start there. There aren't very many of them.
Yeah.
Supermicro makes most of them.
You get on the rabbit hole really quick on these.
Yeah.
It's interesting how they vent and how they cool as well. The fans have a pass-through to each other.
Yeah.
So it looks like they're too close. You're like, wait a minute. If the fans are here, how does the next one get fed? Through this fan?
Yeah.
It's designed to work this way. It does not overheat. It's crazy loud, though. It is.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, they put a space heater in the men's room. I don't know if you noticed it, say, when you were down. And the reason is that that heated the room it was in the adjacent room where the thermostat is up a solid 15 degrees above the office ambient temperature. So like no heat ran for the rest of that zone for like 2
So, okay, I was wondering why there was a space heater in there. That explains it.
Yeah.
I don't know, how much does that thing weigh? A lot.
Heavy.
Yeah. Epic CPUs aren't cheap and consumer chips don't have enough lanes. Yes, that's That's absolutely
Yes.
one of the challenges, number of PCI lanes.
Yes. And not all the Epic chips. Some of the newer Intel ones also have enough lanes to do it. But yeah, it's interesting.
Travis, it was warm in the bathroom.
Yeah, so this client did not need they didn't need NVLink. I asked because if you can see the connector for it on top there and towards the back. It's just a connector that connects to 2 cards.
Yeah.
Or all the cards. They didn't need it. So the use case of this is there will actually, it's got Proxmox on it. There will be 8 VMs on it, and each of the VMs will have a single GPU passed through to it, I believe is the use case.
Yep.
So there is no cross card things going on at all.
Nope. It runs, we'll say, some scientific data engineering to process. It's a very custom thing. This is not, none of this is really off the shelf, like what they do or anything.
Yeah.
And probably as expected for companies that can buy $100,000 servers for their labs where they do engineering work in science. So definitely an interesting client. They already have that 45 drive server. They've got another one coming, and they're probably going to buy some more. Eventually,
got a networking kit next, I think, because like these servers have 100 gig in them. We got I didn't have any 100 gig optics, but we definitely had some 100 or 40 gig DACs. So this and the 45 drive box, we definitely connected to each other at 40 gig. But yeah, I mean, these boxes have 10 and 100 gig in it. And that's it.
Yeah, the server lifts are cool. I have videos of them at the data center. So when I get the data center video, they have the really cool hydraulic lifts for the servers. And it's neat because they attach to the racks to rack them in and load. They got these cool slides on them.
Yeah. Yep. I want to set up that XE from Patchbox. Have you seen that?
No.
It's like the one thing of theirs that, although I did, they gave me at ChannelCon a bunch of the dev mounts, which are
okay.
like rack screw alternatives. These are the Patchbox people.
Yeah. They recently reached out to me, asked if I want some product. That I haven't replied to them yet, so I can say yes.
Yeah, I mean the setup.exe is it is cool because it's like it's not quite a server lift, but it gives you a way that I would be comfortable doing a 2U by myself. That way, basically goes in the rack, and you can set the server on it to push it into the rack. Then I see here.
This is the part that they always want people to promote. This doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
I don't understand that.
Okay, it's not just me then.
No, it's like I can make this pretty by sacrificing a U. It's like I don't want to do that.
Yeah, and I don't. Once the cables are done and nice, like it's a lab thing that might be fun. So part of me wants to say yes because it's a fun lab thing. I don't see it as a production thing.
Yeah. Well,
when
and
I look at
Cisco,
some of the ones, it doesn't make sense.
Some of the bigger vendors, like Cisco on the Nexus stuff, they have like some sort of like their cable bundles where like 8 go into them, and you can unplug and plug in like groups of 8. Right. So there's already solutions to some of this stuff.
But this is cool for setting something on there. I do like this.
Yeah, that's cool. And I think the dev mounts are cool too, honestly.
Yeah.
They're novel. Like I hate cage nuts. I've smashed my fingers and cut myself on cage nuts so many times that if you can use something like that, it's really cool. But, for a lot of use cases, it probably just won't work because, it's a captive. I'm not going to be able to mount like rack rails with them because they have to screw into it and the posts won't work. But for like switches, that's great.
The ones I like the best, and you may have noticed them that are in our lab in Southgate. What's that company that makes the plastic ones? I love those. They work great.
Rackstuds. Yeah.
Man, we put like 200 pounds on one of them. We couldn't believe how much weight. We did some shear testing with them by we made a stupid video where we brought a bunch of lifting weights in, and we're just setting them more and more on shelves. And these shelves were, teetering, and it finally ripped them out. But I was like, we put more weight than you will. I mean, you just don't usually have servers that weigh that much. And especially because you're, like you said, usually even your heavy Cisco stuff doesn't weigh that much for switches. So those are solid. I've always hated the cage nuts, man. I got so many times when I've had to mess with my finger over the years.
Yeah.
Yeah. 10x the cost of the patch cables. That's right.
Yeah, that's the other side of it. I want to pay more and lose rack space. I mean, they're cool. Like if I don't know, you buy one for the rack you show everybody.
Yeah. And I think this might be fun to have when you're moving things around because it's my lab.
But don't.
But
Why you have VLANs? Leave the cables where they're at. And
yeah.
the
Well, like
logic.
I'm testing different switches in my lab and things like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Like I'm racking it, I'm putting it in because I want to demo this model switch. Like it's for like literally demoing stuff, but not production. Because I'm only going to do it once. Why would I spend this much money for a modular cassette?
Yeah.
If it was cheap,
yeah,
but it costs so much more money.
Is that like I can't if it was one, right? But now I have to buy a cassette for each one of them, and it's pointing out they're like 10 times as expensive as a patch cable.
Yeah.
And that stuff should be static.
Like, look at this. $570.
Yeah.
That's like, you know how cheap patch cables are?
Yeah.
It comes out to be the cassettes $22 per patch cable. I don't get it.
Oh, no. I almost just said something that would have gotten me in trouble for sure.
Oh. Oh, someone says, can Veeam do Proxmox VMs? It doesn't have Proxmox support, does it?
No.
I didn't think so.
I could probably make it work the same way I could make Veeam work, but the restore path isn't great.
Yeah.
Which is like, run the Linux agent on the host, use pre and post scripts to like basically run the proper commands to issue the snapshots and write it, then back up the directory with the snapshots in it. And then, the restore. That's how, ironically enough, that's how I'm backing up an Oracle ODA, or we were using Unitrends. It was exactly that. But it's not supported and it's not awesome.
Yeah, not an ideal situation. Oh, yeah. How to waste your IT budget. Buy a bunch of these silly cassettes. So how do you go about backing up Proxmox XE similar to XO? Proxmox has their Proxmox backup server. I've never used it. It's not as, if my understanding, it's still agent based. It's not as integrated as their, it doesn't integrate with Proxmox VE. It's like a separate product. It doesn't integrate the same way XCP-NG does.
Yeah.
Which is weird to me because you think if the same company's making it, but it's, by the way, Proxmox makes an email server. It's another one of their products. It has nothing to do with Proxmox VE. It's just another product they make.
That's interesting.
Yeah, if you go to Proxmox, these are like separate products made by the same company. They're kind of interesting. So you have their virtual environment, VE. You have their backup server. This is a separate standalone backup server. It doesn't have anything to do with or even need this to run. And then you have Proxmox Mail Gateway. They're all separate pieces of software by the same company called Proxmox. Kind of strange. But
they're playing Barracuda.
Yeah, Mail Gateway is an open source email security solution. Protects your mail server against that. Like I said, it's kind of strange. It was like, here's a Mail Gateway product, here's a backup server, and here's a Proxmox. And these are all completely separate things. I've never looked at the pricing on it. Yeah. $1,100 a year, complete feature set, 15 tickets a year. Community edition. Doesn't really features. There we go. Spam and virus. Easy deployment. DNS, SMTP, gray listing, block. I mean, I don't know. Inbound email. I don't know if it's going to be that much better. I feel the companies that are going to be better at it are still like we use Mimecast or one of their competitors. That's just going to be Proofpoint. Yeah. Because it really comes down to, is it good enough just pulling these real-time block lists from Spam House and all the different places?
Yes, that is actually probably about 70% of the blocks that we get are from those lists. Honestly.
Yeah. But the more complicated ones, what you gave a percentage before, just how much of our percentage of email doesn't even make it to us through my guest.
Somewhere in the 40 to 60% range never even gets to like running data. So you never even get a subject or any better information. It gets rejected before you even start the envelope.
Yeah. Vincent backup and restore performs backups and restore images for XCP-NG and Proxmox. Never heard of Vincent before.
Cable assembly. Maybe that's it. I've spent this whole time looking for this like cable. So at the Track Phone data center down in Miami, their switches, they run in the Nexus 9000 series big Cisco iron, and they're using the fabric extenders, which all connect via 100 gig back to the main thing. But they had some sort of weird thing where they had one button they could push and unplug groups of 8 Ethernet cables. Right. So I thought Hubble made it. I don't know who made it, but it was awesome because it's like you got a 96 port blade here, right? A 2U blade that's got, or 2 chassis blade that's got 96 ports on it, but it's not 96 ports. It's like 16 groups of 8.
Huh. Oh, and you're looking for the device that would just let you do that? Okay. Yes. I did see someone clever. They 3D printed it, but it's kind of neat. When you have to swap out a switch, but you want all the ports to go in exactly the same locations, they 3D printed a block that you would just move all of them to, so you could put them all back where they were.
That's an idea.
With Broadcom acquiring VMware,
maybe that's it.
Is there going to back it all up with Synology that I'm currently doing with VMware? No, you're not going to. This is another thing that's going to break. Synology doesn't have a native integration for backing up Proxmox or XCP-NG either. Now you can use with XCP-NG because of their integrated backups, you can use Synology as a storage target to store your backup data, but you don't. There's not like a native tool in Synology that does it. VMware's been around so long and they're so big. Lots of people have native tools, and that's what makes it a shame that Broadcom's kind of rattling their cage and breaking things because it's like this chain reaction. It's all the ripple effects of I have this and it's integrated, but that'll break if I move away from VMware. But that's what they're hoping is you'll go, well, I don't want to deal with the breakage. How much more is it? Let me bend over further. How bad is it going to be? I don't know. Double the license price? Well, it's this expensive to replace all the things that depend on it, and all my staff is trained and knows where all the buttons are in VMware. Do I want to deal with that, or it's cheaper than changing? That's what they're going to bank on.
Yes, and that will work for a while until people stop learning VMware, and then it will get expensive because the number of people that know how to support it well will go down. But that CEO of Broadcom that's there right now, he'll be long gone by the time that happens, and that's why he doesn't care.
Nope. No, there's all these different consolidations with these large companies. They're all in it for the short-term gain. It's like he's going to be rewarded based on the short-term gain of what he does during his tenure. And he can bounce. And then he's got this cool pedigree of, all these accolades of, while I was head of Broadcom, I increased revenues by blah, 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 blah. Isn't that place a steaming pile of crap now, like 2 years after you left? Oh, that's not my problem. That was the next guy's problem. Well, I was there. We were making money. I left, and that other guy must have screwed it all up. It's so weird to think of how that works. And it aggravates me, and that's why I don't think too much about corporate business companies. I unfortunately have to deal with the results. I will rally against their business practices. At the end of the day, I won't spend too much time noodling around on it because it's nothing good's going to happen. Panduit QuickNet plug. Let's look that up.
Yeah, that could be it.
Panduit makes a lot of nice stuff.
That's it. It's discontinued. No, that wasn't quite it. It was similar to that. Oh, maybe it was it. Okay. Yes, that's it.
I keep seeing ones that are fiber. Oh, wait. Yeah. They've got ones that aren't.
Yeah, that was it. It looks like they discontinued it.
Aw.
It
They
did
make a fiber
6s.
one, too.
Yeah. That thing was awesome.
Oh, I know where to look for it. Fleabay. That's where you can always find all the weird stuff.
I found a picture of it.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I keep finding the fiber ones. They seem to be more popular. Huh.
Here. I'll send you the URL here.
I migrated several customers from VMware to XCP-NG. Some VMs are backed up with Agent for Veeam. Rest is integrated back with XCP-NG. Yeah.
So that one did 6. But you could get it with that connector on the left on both sides.
Why is it potato picture here?
Enhance.
It doesn't enhance. It doesn't get. They disable right click so you can't make it bigger.
Control plus will make it bigger.
Hold on. Let me just see if I can find a better image by searching the part number.
Yeah.
On someone with a better site. Oh, like Panduit themselves.
So you could plug that left side into a switch, and then you could plug and unplug that whole grouping there at once.
That's cool.
And you could get that configured on both ends of it, right? So like it could go to your patch panel, and then I need that. I don't need Patchbox. I need that thing.
That is cool. I like this. Panduit QB something. Does Panduit themselves has them? No.
Some of it's, I haven't figured out if it's all discontinued, but some amount of it's discontinued.
They still have the product page here.
Oh yeah, the product. Okay, I found them. Yeah, they still sell them. They just don't sell that one anymore.
That is cool.
Isn't it?
I like this. Now I know how I want to patch my box. Find one of these on eBay.
Yeah, I mean they're also expensive, but like so we did some cabling for the local hospital system. We were doing some basically installation and integration work for them when they built a new office building, and I think we installed, I didn't do any of them, but I think Matt did actually a lot of them, 400 or 500 switches across the various things, and then had to patch all the things down. And they were buying their patch cables in a box that reminded me of like a normal cable box, and the cables just had little connectors between them. So you would just pull a cable, 10-foot cable out of this. Instead of being individually bagged, they were just in a cable box. You'd pull it out, you twist it off, and then plug it in and use it. I think they were called Quick Patch.
Huh. These are cool, though. All different part numbers, 5 feet, lengths.
Huh. Easy Patch, that's it.
Easy Patch.
Ortonics Easy Patch. And I'm like, why would somebody want, like,
what's the company called?
Legrand. They're like 2 or 3 times as expensive as normal patch cables are. And I'm like, why would somebody spend that amount of money on this like fancy boxy patch cables? The reason is you don't have to tear a plastic bag and undo 2 twist ties on every one of them.
Okay. Huh.
Yeah.
There are all kinds of. Where's the box they had there?
Yeah, there you go. You found it. Yeah. So you could get them in colors and then Cat 6, 6A, and then, sizes. And, there's 40 or 50 of them in each box.
Yep. I get it.
Yeah, so do I. I'm like, the things.
Yeah, it's weird that you can't get those easier that way. But like you said, when you got like 400 things to patch, that's time is money.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm like. Okay, so instead of being like a $2 monoprice patch cable, this is like a $4 patch cable or a $5 patch cable. But if it takes $80,000 a year resource, 90 seconds to pull all the stuff out of it, like it may not really be that much cheaper.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the 45 drives Homelab stuff? I think the HL15 is awesome. I have one. It's working great. I haven't had any problems. Well, I can't say I have zero problems with it, but they have nothing to do with 45 drives. It's a super micro board, and the board has no link lights on it, which is weird. But has nothing to do with 45 drives. They sent me a new board. It's on its way. It hasn't arrived yet. But it's not a dig. Matter of fact, if anything, it's how good the support is at 45 drives. As soon as I told them, they're like, we'll just ship you another board. And I'm like, great.
Oh yeah, we've had no issues at all to my knowledge, with 45 drive support. Like we've had, we've had some bad drives. Anytime you buy 60, I think with the exception of the most recent one, we've always had one or two bad ones, because that's the failure curve of hard drives. Like it's really tall and then it's very small for a long time.
Yep.
And if you look at the Backblaze reports, they'll say the same thing. Like the instance of them failing within the first 10 hours is high, and then it's low, and then it goes back up again. But we had a backplane bad too, and they sent parts out. They don't question. They don't even want the parts back in many cases.
No, they just want to get it fixed. And we've now bought did we buy 2 Stornadoes or one?
Just one.
Okay. We got to do an updated review. I did a review before it got installed, but I like the follow-up reviews, because reviews are one thing. Reviews after out in the field, that's where we want to follow up on them. And your assessment of that Tornado is it's really fast.
It's really fast. I don't know what else to say about it.
Yeah, it just works. I think they've done such a good job of taking more commoditized hardware and building a machine that's affordable. I mean, you think about it, that petabyte server, the matter of fact, the one I'm logged into right now, this server's right around the $50,000-$60,000 mark for a usable storage volume here.
Yeah, I think that's probably about right.
Yeah, you can price it out right on their site. Like, yeah, I went and priced it out. It's right about 50,000, and you're talking about 726 terabytes of fast storage.
Not fast in quotes. I mean, you were actually able to push it pretty quick, right?
Yeah. What did I post? Because I posted in our Slack.
Yeah, you were getting like a couple gigabits per second. That was not bytes, I presume.
Right.
Yeah.
It'll actually be somewhere in Netdata, but yeah, it's wild just how fast it is.
And I think that is actually I think we put 128 gigs in that one, so it's a little more. And it has 100 gig NIC in it.
Yeah.
That one will be the real problem, because it's got the 100 gig NIC and then everything else is onboard. So the onboards are only gig.
The onboards are 10.
No, this says the onboards there's an included dual port NIC onboard. Normally they ship with 10s out of the box, but we upgraded them to 100s. So I don't know if that's in addition to the 10 board they normally put in it.
Let's look. I have it pulled up. Does it tell me what
ENO0 and ENO1 are going to be 10 gig or 1 gig, almost certainly.
Yeah, because these are the 10 ones.
No, those are hundreds.
I'm sorry, hundreds.
But can you pop a shell on it?
Yeah, hold on. I thought you could choose the link speed on here. I guess they don't have that option inside of this.
Probably ifconfig-a.
Oh, look, Kubernetes bullshit. There we go.
No, there's no. I'm trying to remember what the equivalent command to ETH tool is on FreeBSD.
Oh, this is Linux.
Oh yeah, then just run ETH tool.
Yeah, assuming that's installed.
It will be. And then you got to give it a dev. So just give it /dev/eno, or just eno. Give it eno2. There you go. Oh, it's 10.
Yeah, I thought they had onboard 10.
No, is that 10?
Oh wait, no, nope, you're right.
That's
It's not.
gig. That's gig.
It's 1 gig. Okay, so it's got a pair of gigs.
And then a pair of 100 gigs.
Yeah, they need 100 gig to get this thing going.
So I'm gonna pop that guy. Avaya switches are fine. The CLI in them's kind of wonky. They will move data if that's what your goal is. No one is installing them because I'm pretty sure they got bought by Extreme.
Yeah, is that who purchased them?
Yeah, they're old. Those are probably actually honestly old Bay Network switches or Nortel. Yeah, but I thought somebody bought the switch line out of it from Avaya. Maybe not.
Nortel. I haven't heard that word in a while.
Oh yeah, Bay Networks. Nortel bought Bay Networks, and Avaya bought Nortel.
Yep. Oh man, the memory lane of switches. Price out power usage. Yeah, those old servers don't. Or old switches don't sip power. That's for sure. I have a Lenovo switch. I was going to do some testing with because they were cheap at the time, but then the pandemic. But I got it from the guys at Tech Supply Direct. They sent it over, and I was going to review it because there was like no switches in stock during the beginning of the pandemic. But it seemed like kind of a lack of interest in it. I don't know. There wasn't enough demand. They sold enough of them, but because they had just had a big surplus of these PoE Lenovo switches. They're loud as hell, though. That's one reason I didn't like it. Like it only has one mode of operation.
And honestly, they're no different than any of the China Minium ones you're going to get. It's just some reference platform. They're pops like Cumulus or some other crappy OS on, and that's what they're running.
Their web UI was bad and slow, and
it's a reference platform.
Yeah. Exactly. Lenovo made a switch. What kind of? Lenovo clearance a whole lot of switches that Tech Supply Direct had.
HP did the same thing, but at least HP was honest about the fact that they didn't make most of them. They were just relabeled. So like you could buy fiber channel switches from HP and the model number ended in B or E. And if it was ended in B, it was a Brocade. And if it ended in E, it was an Emulex.
Yep. Well, welcome to Dell's world as well. They did much of the same thing. Lots of just rebranding.
It looks like they still sell. There's still a switch available on their site.
Lenovo?
Yeah.
Really?
I
didn't know they were still doing it.
E.
I've not seen them in the wild.
No, me either.
Someone bought a bunch of them. Some Lenovo rep made his quota. No, this is not exactly correct. All the large PC builders don't make switches. They all brand switches as their own. They all stick their label.
Well, let's be real. How many of them actually make computers? I think Foxconn makes a lot of computers.
I think Foxconn makes a whole lot of computers. Dell release notes for patch switches are random. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually don't see. There's still pages on their site, on Lenovo's site for switches, but I don't actually see that you can get to them off the main site anymore. So it's probably all discontinued.
Yeah. Foxconn, all the things. I mean, Foxconn makes the Apple things too.
Yep.
Fun. Well, I think I'm going to wind it down unless you want to keep going forever. It's been 2 hours and 19 minutes.
Yeah. She's waiting to put the kids to bed. She's like, I want to say goodnight to the kids.
Yeah. And you got to do, how many miles you got to run tonight?
3.
You going to do it outside or inside?
No. I will typically run down to about 37 degrees outside. There was ice on the way to the car, so definitely will not be running outside. It's like 27 out, I think.
Yeah. It was nice for a minute out, like when the sun was out when I just got back to my house, but I'm like, yeah, I'm the same way. I like hiking. I don't mind hiking, but I won't do anything too active. I don't like that cold air hitting me, just bothers my lungs too.
Yeah,
I'm getting old.
it's more of I'm afraid of stepping. Like the last thing I want to do while running is find ice.
Yeah, entry that would suck. 2 a.m. Where does that put Jimmy the IT guy? UK.
Yes.
UK area.
9 plus 4 is 13. Yeah, we're GMT plus 5 right now, so somewhere around GMT.
Yep.
Or GMT minus 5, I guess. So
yep. I want to dive into Kaspersky. I want to do some more reading. They just did another dump of research on the triangulation attack from iPhone. It's really interesting. There's apparently kind of sort of a backdoor in iPhone, and what they found is really interesting because the backdoor that was used in this exploit, no one could have reverse engineered. Someone had a map. How did that map get out? That's the question, because it's a map of where all the hardware is mapped to I/O memory devices, and I get it's really clever the way Apple engineered it.
That exists for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean Apple built it.
Yeah.
But the weird part is Apple built it, and Apple's latest patch is what everyone's confused. They removed it. So everyone's like, why was it in there for so long? Was it for testing reasons? Why did you leave this enabled? Because you obviously were able to remove it when Kaspersky pointed out the problem with it and that people have maps to it. So you fixed it. But it kind of leads to the question of why'd you leave it enabled for so long if it wasn't necessary? If it didn't have a breaking thing by breaking this?
Maybe they didn't know.
Well, someone said that as a suggestion, but I think the counter to it is how this is very well written. Each one of the IO ports requires a specific hash before it will accept the command. So they took the time to guard it.
Oh.
So it was built purposefully.
They probably had to re-engine. It's probably an appendix.
Yeah.
Like a leftover organ from an earlier time when they required it. They've re-architected the things no longer needed anymore, but the software developer that wrote the new thing marked the old thing for deprecation.
And no one deprecated
No one ever removed it, right? Because tech debt. And then until it becomes a problem. And then it's like, oh, we probably ought to release a patch to fix that one last thing that still relies on this thing and then get rid of it.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I mean, because you've worked in some of the enterprise software dev, how that stuff can get overlooked. It's not necessarily nefarious. It's just one of those.
Yeah.
It's like it's the old appendix problem. Like we didn't know we needed, but we still keep growing one.
Yeah. Assholes. Oh, they changed the hash the hash. Okay. That's also potentially explainable because changing the hash every generation could have just been a build output products. Like it could just be in the build pipeline that could go again. There could have been one subsystem that was still relying on this old crutch they had. And so it was still part of the build pipeline. And then the security researchers are like, now we need to get rid of it. They re-engineer the one or two things using it. And then they finally remove it.
Yep.
Just because there's an automatic thing that happens every version, it doesn't necessarily mean a human's involved. They're almost certainly not at that scale. It's almost certainly a build pipeline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a Steve Gibson that's what got me intrigued. I listened to his.
I want a source. Somebody link source because this if you have a video, Tom, link it to me because I need something that's about 36 minutes long to watch on the treadmill.
Oh yeah, I'll send you this one and skip. I'll tell you where to skip to in it because it's like a long podcast. But if you listen at 2x, he sounds like a normal person.
Okay.
If you listen at 1x, you think he had an aneurysm.
Yeah, no, that sounds great.
So I'll send that to you. All right, we're gonna bounce, everyone. If I was talking about the latest Security Now episode with Steve Gibson, so if anyone else wants to join in listening, that's what we're gonna do after. I've already listened to it, but Jason listened to it while he's running. Thanks everyone for joining. Thanks for having us. I'll time index this after. My new AI tools have been doing a great job of taking a 2.5 hour live stream and making sense of it. With chat, it does great chapters. It'll have like where we talked about iSCSI and everything. And I wonder how many times it's gonna count that we said don't route your storage.
I don't know.
I need a shirt that says that. We'll just reference the shirt every time. You're like, hey, don't route your storage.
Somebody said you need a don't route your storage shirt. So,
all right, I'll put that on my to-do list.
Yeah.
All right, later, folks.
See ya later.